My name is Gary Stein. I'm your host tonight, second year in a row. So thank you with gratitude, I say, Lauren, for having me back. I'd like to start with a big thank you to our partners who have made this night possible. Aventura at the Heights is a unique senior living community that fulfills the needs of those who prefer a kosher environment, who choose to continue the lifelong traditions. The community is designed for those who wish to maintain their independence, yet may need some additional assistance. Gilchrist. You may know Gilchrist best for the care they provide people near the end of life, but they offer so much more than hospice care. Today's Gilchrist extends services to individuals with serious illness who need care and support well in advance of hospice care. They also provide counseling and support before and after the loss of a loved one. For the Johns Hopkins Home Care Group, thank you, bringing health care services to you in the place you're most comfortable, which is your home. Whether you need home medical care or skilled care, home medical equipment to improve your health, a medication, extra help in your daily activities, their team provides safe, comprehensive care for people of all ages, from babies born prematurely to older adults. Lifespan Network is the largest senior care provider association in the Mid-Atlantic. They represent nearly 350 senior care providers in Maryland and D.C. Lifespan Network's members provide care and services to seniors across the continuum of care. MVS Woundcare Hyperbarics, a privately held accredited wound care center, hyperbaric medical practice in Baltimore, led by a diverse team of medical professionals, including vascular surgeons, plastic surgeons, podiatrists, primary care nurses, and hyperbaric technicians. And finally, to Positive Aging Community. Since 1990, they have brought the community together to make finding housing, aging in place solutions, and resources more convenient. They accomplish this by connecting older adults, families, and providers via a comprehensive network. Okay, tonight you're going to meet a lot of great speakers, medical professionals, who will talk about aging gratefully, which is the mindset of making the choice to live life from a place of gratitude rather than dreading the aging process. Before we meet our speakers tonight, I'd like to call on Rabbi Benjamin Shalva of Gilchrist to share with us a meditation on gratitude. Rabbi Shalva specializes in spiritual and hospice counseling, meditation, and mindfulness instruction, and Jewish music, and serves as rabbinic support consultant for Gilchrist and as lead faculty for the Soul Center, Baltimore.
All right, thank you so much. And it's an honor to be here, and a special shout out to Lauren Eskafu for inviting me, and to the whole Jmore crew. And it's wonderful to be here representing Gilchrist. And also, you might be asking yourself, though, how is it possible that someone from Gilchrist could also get this incredible Gordon Center fleece vest? And I will tell you, it's because I am married to the chief arts officer of the JCC, so, which I should really lead with always. So, but it's an honor to be here, and to be here also here at the J, and thanks to all our JCC crew for making this possible as well. Now, one of the things that I do at Gilchrist is offer meditation, mindfulness, and relaxation instruction for anyone who's interested in trying to find their breath and to find their body and their groundedness in the midst of struggle, in the midst of stress, or even in the midst of the anxiety of the aging process. And so what I'd like to do is to offer a very short, and I promise, 4 or 5 minutes tops, meditation for all of us this evening, so that you can just get a taste of that. And my hope is that this meditation is something that you can take with you, anyone can take with you. It's actually based in Jewish Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism practice, but you don't need to have any kind of background in Jewish thought or mysticism or meditation to be able to find positive benefits from this. So what I'm going to ask you to do to begin is to just, as all meditation teachers do, I invite you to find yourself in a comfortable position. So maybe feet on the floor, grounded, turning your cell phone off, or at least on Do Not Disturb. And I also want to invite you, if you feel comfortable, as I like to say, this is a challenge by choice activity, to close your eyes. And again, if you feel comfortable, to just let your breathing be nice and natural in and out through your nose, which is a nice cue to your nervous system that everything is okay. And what I want to invite you to focus on to begin this meditation is just the sensations of your 5 senses. Notice what you're sensing through your sense of feeling. Let's say the feeling of the air against your face, or the feeling of the clothing against your skin, or your feet against the floor. But also you can extend that to what, is there any taste on your tongue or any smell? And even if your eyes are closed, are you seeing anything? Maybe it's just blackness, or maybe sometimes you'll see, colors or shapes. And in particular, any sound, my voice, of course, but other sounds too. Holding that sense of your 5 senses, I want to also invite you now to notice how you're feeling. What are the emotions in your heart right now? Without any sense of right or wrong, good or bad. Just noticing your emotion, whatever it is. And holding to that sense of your physical body sensations and also your emotions, I also want to invite you for a moment to notice, what are your thoughts? Also, without any kind of sense of good or bad, right or wrong. It's okay even if the thought is, I wish this guy would hurry up. That's fine. Just notice your thoughts. And now holding to that sense of your body and your emotions and your thoughts, I want to invite you for just a few more breaths before we finish to ask yourself, who is it who is watching my thoughts, my emotions, and my body? Who is that who's watching? And just stay with that question for a moment. In fact, I want to invite you to be curious. Who is it who's watching those thoughts and those feelings and those sensations? And now feel free to just come back to the breath itself. And whenever you're ready, you can gently open your eyes back into the space. Unless you're asleep, which means you needed a nap, which is also okay. It's truly an honor to be able to share this with you and to be here this evening representing Gilchrist, and thank you so much.
Thank you. I don't know about you guys, but I'm refreshed. Wow, that was awesome. Before we get to our, I don't need this, hold on. Here. Okay, before we get to our first speaker tonight, I wanted to give you some numbers and people to think about for just a minute. Okay, so bear with me on this. You'll see what they all have in common. Some of these names you'll recognize, some of them you won't, but they all have 2 things in common. John Glenn, in 1998, became the oldest astronaut in space at the age of 92. Tom Allen, Britain's oldest yoga instructor at the age of 90, started doing yoga at the age of 62. Yoshio Miura, reached the summit of Mount Everest at the age of 80. He also did it at the age of 75 and 70, and he wants to do it when he's 90. Johanna Quast from Germany, recognized as the world's oldest gymnast, still competing at the age of 86. In 2016, Farha Singh ran the Mumbai Marathon at the ripe old age of 104, and he finished. Nola Ox became the world's oldest college graduate in 2007 when she earned her bachelor's degree from Fort Hays State University at the age of 95. In 2017, Rosemary Smith became the oldest person to drive a Formula One race car at the age of 79. Anna Mae Robertson Moses didn't start painting until she was 76 years old, and she painted every day after that for 25 years until she passed away at the age of 101. Upon her death, then President John F. Kennedy released a statement praising Grandma Moses, that's who she was, for inspiring the nation. And as Paul Harvey used to say, and some of you may know this, now you know the rest of the story. And one more for you. This past Sunday, Jim Larrañaga, the head coach of the Miami Hurricanes men's college basketball team, took his team to the NCAA Final Four for the first time in program history. Jim Larrañaga is 73 years old. And when he was asked how he did it, he said wisdom, experience, and a positive attitude. So my hope in telling you all of that is that we leave here tonight with a light bulb turned on, that we realize that we can grow with age. And growing together tonight, we can share ideas, attitudes about aging that lift each other up, so that we can walk back out into the world tonight with a newfound commitment to positivity and gratitude in aging. In other words, aging gratefully. And that's exactly what we're here to talk about tonight. So, on that note, I'd like to introduce Steve Gurney of Positive Aging Community. Steve Gurney founded Retirement Living Sourcebook in 1990, drawing from the experience of observing his family caring for his aging grandfather. He created a comprehensive publication to help others in the same situation. He sold it in 1998 to the Washington Post, reacquired it in 2019, and I'll let him tell you the rest of the story.
Great. Well, thanks so much. And I have to say, this event is amazing because there's amazing resources out there in the hallways. There's amazing resources here on the stage. And part of what we want to do is we want to inspire everybody to be empowered about the next chapter of life, okay? And there's a couple of things that have been on my mind lately. I'm going to babble here for a couple of minutes. A couple of things that I want you to think about, and this ties into aging gratefully, because at Positive Aging Community, we convene weekly discussions on every topic under the sun. And there's three things that I want to introduce you to and get you thinking about, especially with our presenters tonight. The first is solo aging, the second is ageism, and the third is affordability. These are three discussion topics that I have seen to be so empowering and so important. Now, the first one, solo aging, I had never heard this term until maybe about a year and a half ago when somebody was in one of our discussions and they said, I'm a solo ager, who can I pay to be my advanced or my durable power of attorney? And it created an hour-long discussion on, well, you don't have family? And she goes, no, I do have family. I'd prefer that they were not my durable power of attorney, okay? And so the classic, when a lot of people think of solo aging, they think of maybe a single person that never had children and has outlived all their family. But, you know, my wife and I, one of us is going to pass away before the other, and we've got two kids, but we don't want to be a burden on them, so we got to come up with a solo aging plan. And so, again, one of the things that I've seen with people thinking about solo aging, they're not ashamed of it. They're actually empowered by it. And there was one woman that I talked to recently who was like, the best thing that ever happened to me was my friends that I used to travel with can't travel anymore. I like traveling by myself, okay? And it's more fun, more empowering. So that's the first thing that I've been thinking a lot about. The second thing is ageism. And I love this saying, the jokes about getting old are getting old, okay? Now, we all hate it when ageism occurs against us in the workplace, in a party where you feel like you might be getting ignored because you're a little older than the rest of the people there. But what I've found is that the remedy is that we all have to be advocates against ageism. And I bring up the jokes about getting old or getting old is when you go to a birthday party, when you buy your friend a birthday card, think about, the ignoring the ones that have all the black humor. The ones that I'm talking about. Let's celebrate growing older. If we make fun of it, and if we practice making fun of it, and if we say things like, oh, I'm too old to do this or that, we're just feeding the beast, and it doesn't make life better for all of us as we go through this journey of life. And then the last point that I'm going to say, and then I'll jump off the stage here, is affordability. It's, there's, we're in a bad economy. There's, our longevity has improved, which means that that many of us need to fund not working for many more years than we ever anticipated. And so being creative and figuring out how we can take care of our loved ones with the resources that we have. And the thing that I'll leave you with on this topic, because it's the solution to a lot of things as we travel through these chapters that we like to refer to as aging, it's community. It's what I would say is that whether it be for yourself or a loved one, intentionally look at your network or your loved one's network of friends, families, neighbors, colleagues. People want to help us, and we may need help at some point in our life, and the best way that you can help affordability is have some of that free and volunteer network support that is supplemented by a lot of the organizations that you're going to meet in the lobby. It's sort of a different type of long-term care insurance that can stretch our dollar. So with that, I'm going to pass things over to you, and let's see what we're going to learn today.
Well, actually, before you go, I just wanted to ask you one question, just to follow up, about the ageism portion, right, which is really interesting to me. I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm sure you've seen these commercials on television and ads in magazines, newspaper, et cetera, online, where, it's feel young, be young, take this product, this cream, this, everything is about feeling young, being young, right? And that's not a bad message necessarily to send, but I'm just wondering, in your opinion, you talk about ageism and black humor in birthday cards, is that the right message to be sending older people? What do you think?
I think, and trust me, I'm not an expert at this, but I've talked to so many experts over the years that I have started looking at things a little bit differently. So if a common thing is that somebody might say, I'm 85, but I feel like I'm 20. And it's sort of like, what does 20 feel like? Okay? And then somebody might say, I feel old. Okay? And it's like, what does old feel like? And it's best if we don't use that terminology, because what we're doing is we're disparaging growing old. And as we get older, a statement like, or you say to somebody, they're 80, but they look like they're 60. It's sort of like, what does 60 look like? It's bizarre terminology. And, the thing is, I think if a lot of us really reflect on it, most of us are the same people that we were when we were 20 that we are when, I'm 57 right now, but I tend to like myself a lot more at age 57, and I found that when I've talked to people, but what they don't like is being discriminated against, and if we can celebrate this more, I think it'll work. But yeah, so it's a fine line.
So I won't tell him he looks like he's 37. Steve, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let me find my place here because we got a lot more to get to. All right, so Steve has spoken. All right, let's move on to the next part of our program here, which are one-on-ones with our guest speakers tonight. I'd like to call on Suzanne Havrilla. She is board certified in geriatric physical therapy and is the director of home support, the private duty division for the Johns Hopkins home-based division. Suzanne is a geriatric clinical specialist certified by the American Board of Physical Therapy Specialists. She has over 25 years of experience treating geriatric patients in their homes. She also manages the rehabilitation services for adult home health patients and oversees memory care services in the private duty division. Fun fact about Suzanne, and I hope she doesn't mind sharing this with you, she was a Girl Scout back in the day, and their motto, of course, is be prepared, which I'm sure she is for our interview tonight. So welcome, Suzanne. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here and be with you tonight. Grateful is a state that we should all aspire to. I've been taking yoga for 25 years, and my favorite yoga instructor says something I wanted to share. We get good at what we practice. So I think this theme tonight is perfect for that. We should practice gratitude.
And also, perfect practice makes perfect. So that's also another important one. The reason, Suzanne, that I bring up the Girl Scout part of your history is because you told me, we had a chance to talk a couple of weeks ago, that you volunteered at a nursing home when you were a Girl Scout, which kind of set you on your professional course.
That's right. My mom reminded me, my mom had her 90th birthday back in January, and she reminded me, someone asked her, how did you asked me in her presence, how did you get interested in physical therapy? And I said, I think it was, and my mom said, wait a minute, I know exactly what it was. And it was that volunteer experience. She said, you came home from that and said, Mom, I'm going to be a physical therapist. And I was 13 or 14 years old. Because I saw what different disciplines did in the care center, and I really liked the physical therapist and their interaction with patients. And I've had such a wonderful career, 42 years of being able to go into people's homes and become part of their family and help them age gratefully.
So I want to pick up on that. So you've been in people's homes for the last 25 plus years. When you're there doing the physical therapy and maybe yoga and all that stuff, you talk to your patients, right? And they must have so much wisdom and reflection on their long-lived lives. So, what do you glean from that as you experience all these different conversations and relationships that you have with all your patients over time?
I think the thing I've taken away is to stay engaged in life, whatever that means to you, because it's different for different people, but not to let, whether physically you have a disability that is not letting you garden anymore, but then find something else that you enjoy so that you can stay engaged. That's what I've learned from my patients.
Two more things for you. One thing you said about yoga, which was interesting to me. You said that people go to yoga, they start yoga because it gives them better balance and flexibility. But the reason why people stay with yoga is for the meditation and the self-reflection that it offers. So it goes from filling a physical need to a more spiritual need.
Absolutely. The yoga center where I practice had a little raffle, and that was the question. Why did you start yoga? blank, why do you stay? And over again, that's what participants said, that it was that mind-body connection that made them a lasting participant in yoga.
And as far as gratitude, aging gratefully is concerned, you're a big proponent of journaling. Maybe writing down, 2 or 3 things at the end of the night that you're thankful for.
Yes, that was, during the pandemic, it was a really tough time in healthcare because we never stopped, right? Whether you worked in the hospital or whether you worked in the home, we kept going. And we really focused on our staff's resilience. How do we focus on self-care so that we can continue to take care of others? And the 3 good things was something we focused on, so that at the end of your day, that you write down 3 things that you're thankful for that happened that day. It could be a person, it could be an experience, it could be something you ate, or a bird you saw, and that should be the last thoughts before you drift off to sleep.
Sounds good. One final note, you mentioned I mentioned the memory care program that you're a part of. This is personal for you because your dad had dementia and the family members had no idea what that journey was going to be like for everybody involved. So can you just talk about that for a moment and what you may advise someone in that situation?
Sure. When my dad was 82 and he was diagnosed with vascular dementia, and I was in the car with my mom. My dad was riding with my brother, and my mom looked at me and said, "Thank heavens he doesn't have Alzheimer's." And so it was very clear to me right then that she didn't understand that we were on the same journey. The reason we were on that journey didn't really matter which type of dementia he had, that we were in store. And I found that my dad looked pretty good for years, and he could cover socially pretty well, but his mind wasn't there. And he knew us, which was a blessing. But just looking him, they expected him to be able to do a whole lot more than he was able to do. And one of the tests that he took, the psychiatrist gave him a circle and asked him to put the numbers on the clock. And he started at 12, and he went around till he got to 6, and then the numbers went straight down off the page. And that really, I took that home and showed my brothers the extent of his disease. And it really, I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and I would love to have been able to have the memory care service that we have at Hopkins. It's founded in research, and it's really helpful to families to navigate that.
Suzanne Havrilla from the Johns Hopkins Home-Based Division, thank you so much. Really, really nice. And she was prepared. Okay, next I'd like to turn to Kevin Heffner. Kevin has been in this business for 26 years. He's currently the president and CEO of Lifespan Network. Lifespan Network is the largest senior services provider association in the Mid-Atlantic, representing more than 300 senior service provider organizations. In addition, Kevin has a little bit of radio background, co-hosting WCBM's weekly radio program Focus on Seniors from 2003 to 2006. And apparently Kevin is an Eagles fan, not the football team because he's a Ravens fan, but the band. And the reason why I say that is because when I asked him about being in this business, he said, and I quote, "You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave." In the context of once you get into this business, no one ever wants to get out of it. So I don't know if I surprised you with that or not. But it's true. And we talked about this, Kevin, a couple weeks ago. That is true, that once you get in it, because you're in it emotionally. But most people that are in it also draw, like Suzanne did, on an experience when they were younger, which affected them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Gary. I think by and large, this field compared to many others, it's a self-selecting group. The people who get into this field get into it because they care about older people. And most cases, it's because they have or had a relationship with an older person who had a deep impact on their lives. And so when I reference the Hotel California, it's generally meaning that the people who get into this field are in it for a reason because they care about older people, and if they move to another type of organization who is caring for older people as well. Typically, people don't leave because it's certainly as much of a mission as it is a career.
And so the person that you were referring to when you were a kid, I think, was your grandfather. Kevin, by the way, is a Hamden boy. Grew up on Chestnut Avenue, right?
My mom and dad.
Okay,
yeah.
right. And used to walk up to 36th Street, Christmas lights on 34th. Of course, we've all been there. But you told me your grandfather was a grouch, except when he was around the grandkids.
Yeah, he really was. He lived with my grandmother on Chestnut Avenue in Hamden, and we used to do, if you remember back to the 60s, 70s, we would play sports in the front yards. Everybody had a little patch of grass with sidewalks separating, so that lent itself very well to yard lines, playing football games.
Of course.
And we would play sports up and down the street. Well, my grandfather, this was not known to me at the time, years later saw his next door neighbor who, if you can imagine, was living in a row home with 6 siblings and 2 parents, 2 bedrooms, next to my grandparents. And he said to me, I saw him at an event, he said, "Kevin, did I ever tell you the story about your grandfather?" I said, "No, what about," and I have this grand image of my grandfather. He never did anything wrong because he treated us, his grandkids, so well. He said, "Yeah, when we were out playing in the yard, not when you were there, he would eat cherries on the front porch and then throw the pits at us when we were looking in a different direction and then say, 'What? I didn't do that.'"
Get off my lawn.
Right.
That's awesome. Okay, a couple things for you. Interesting things you told me. You look at the elder years as people's freedom years. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a person who I have a great deal of respect for, Bill Thomas, once said, "Older people are the greatest repository of accumulated wisdom that the world has ever known." And I said, "What do you mean by that?" He said, "Well, older people don't just have siloed experiences. Yes, they've been through world events for a longer period of time than younger people have, but those silos, they've learned to put that wisdom together. They understand the layers and how things interact, and that's true wisdom in my perspective. And so, freedom years refers to the fact that when you typically get to be to a certain age, you have the freedom to do the things that you want to do. It doesn't mean financially you're completely independent, but it means that you know who you are. You have that repository of accumulated wisdom that tells you, that informs the decisions that you make. And you have a greater freedom because of that wisdom to be able to do the things that you want to do and save the time to make the correct decisions about where you want to go with your life and who you want to be. One of the other people who was really instrumental in my understanding of older people is a gentleman named Judah Ranch, who talks about, and we've referenced it already this evening, developmental aging versus declinist aging. Developmental aging is the concept that you never stop growing. You continue to grow. Whether, we talked about a little bit earlier, Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia, you're still able to grow developmentally as you're older versus the declinist view of aging. I think some of the two of the worst words that I hear oftentimes are still. We don't say Gary still drives a car. If you're 80 years old, we may say Gary still drives a car. Well, Gary drives a car. He's 80 years old and he drives a car the way that he's always driven a car. The other word or phrase that you often hear is home-like. I live in a home-like environment. Well, who goes home and says, "Gosh, I'm sure happy to be arriving at my home-like"? It's my home. Whether it's assisted living, skilled nursing, a retirement community, that's a home. It's not home-like. So, I'd love, as we continue to talk about the aging experience, to talk about words, because words matter. And still and home-like are words that I think are really not productive.
How important are intergenerational relationships for older people? In other words, older people associating themselves with younger generations, maybe their grandkids, but maybe, like schools, like Betafilla, private schools, et cetera. I say Betafilla because my kids went to Betafilla. They would take their students to an old age home, a nursing home, et cetera, and they would attempt to create those relationships.
That's a great question. I think as we grow older, one of the most important ways that we can give back, and we all want to give back, and I think one of the ways that we give back as we grow older is by sharing wisdom, sharing knowledge with younger people, developing those relationships, and sharing a perspective that they may not have heard before, may not understand. Maybe they were busy looking at their phones or doing something differently, and they didn't experience, younger people maybe didn't experience what it was like to live through, for instance, even something as recent as the gas crisis in the 1970s, when we were going to gas stations and you could only go on the days where the last digit of your license plate coincided with the day of the week, right? So sharing wisdom with younger people is a really joyful way to give back, and I think if you're a younger person who hasn't experienced those intergenerational relationships, you may not know what you're missing because you've never experienced it before, but it gives me great joy to hear that story. And one of the people that we had speak at our annual conference last year, Ed Reed. You wouldn't think we think of Ed Reed, the football player. Ed Reed is really big on, through his foundation, the intergenerational relationships, taking kids who may not have older people in their lives, who live in an urban environment, who are barraged with a whole set of circumstances, taking them out of that environment into a retirement community to just sit and talk with an older person, to hear what makes them tick and maybe learn about some of the experiences that they've had. But intergenerational relationships, I think we've lost a little focus in our country on making those connections in a purposeful way, and I think to the degree that we can reestablish those in a purposeful way, we ought to.
Sidebar, real quick. Have you ever shown a young person a rotary phone? No idea what that contraption is. None at all. Final question. We're here to talk about aging gracefully in general. What does aging gracefully mean to you?
Gosh, I had the experience this past week with my own parents. My parents are 81. They're snowbirds, and they were in Florida for the past couple of months, and my mother had some health issues and had to go to the hospital. Long story short, she was not being diagnosed properly, not getting the care that she needed, and the conversation I had with her and my dad was, Mom and Dad, we have the best health care in the world here. Hopkins, University of Maryland Medical System, the list goes on of the resources that are available to us right here. And it caused me to think about, how grateful I am to be right here, to wake up every day and to know that if I have health issues, I'm not 1,000 miles away from the best doctors and care teams in the world. And it's not just acute care, but the providers that are part of our organizations, the nursing home providers, the assisted living providers, you get better care here and better services than you can anywhere else in the world. And I'll just finish by saying, John Erickson, who I knew very well, founded Erickson Retirement Communities, which, in this area is Oak Crest Village in Parkville, Charlestown Retirement Community in Catonsville. John said, for every one person that goes to Florida, 10 people stay where they are, and 10 people stay in Maryland and at home. Those communities have 2,500 plus residents. They're like small college campuses. And I think, I'm grateful for where we live, but I think it's waking up every day and being grateful that, first of all, that you woke up, but that you're able to interact with others in an environment like this and share experiences and share ideas about how we can make the experience of aging better for older people.
Sounds good. Kevin Heffner, the CEO of Lifespan Network, thank you so much. Last but not least, our final guest tonight serves as the Chief Medical Officer at MVS Woundcare Hyperbarics. He received his medical degree from the American University in Beirut, in Lebanon, and completed his residency in internal medicine at the Good Sam Hospital here in Baltimore. Almost 20 years of experience now in the administration of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. He is board certified in both hyperbaric medicine and internal medicine. He's also been recognized as top doctor by Baltimore Magazine from 2014 to 2020, and he also serves on the board of the National Institute of Health. Please welcome Dr. Ziad Mirza.
Well, I'm grateful I'm here.
You are. So let's start with that. What does aging gratefully mean to you off the top?
Wow, it's a lot. I mean, it's basically we all should find a common purpose for living and go day by day finding a community and a group that we can attach to and be grateful that we are part of that group. That's basically it. I mean, most of the events that are happening today here and most of the speakers touch on the need for the community and be around people that think the same. I also believe that we should open our hearts to love, and the first person that we should love individually is us. If somebody does not love himself and try to do what's best for himself or herself, they should not really be expecting much gratefulness from others. That's what I believe, what it means to me.
Dr. Mirza has a very interesting background in terms of medicine, in terms of life in general, coming from Lebanon to the United States of America. But one of the things that I think is most interesting about what you've done, among many, is you were at Good Sam Hospital in Baltimore, but you gave up your life in Baltimore to move to Murphy, North Carolina, a small town in North Carolina that is the total population is 2,000 people, to be a doctor in Murphy, North Carolina, and as you said, provide all the medical needs that that small community needed but maybe didn't have. Can you talk a little bit about that and what motivated you to do that?
So it was quite an experience. There are still health shortage areas in the United States, believe it or not. Downtown Baltimore is one of them, despite the fact that you have huge hospitals. My wife and I decided to serve 2 years in a small town back in 1992 to 94. The population there is it has been a very good experience from the sense that we're able to help a lot of people. We were the highest, my wife and I were the highest educated in town. It was a town of 2,000. And the hospital had only 25 beds. So we were everything to the town. We were not just the physicians. People would come to me with all issues, with sort of financial, sort of travel, sort of how to deal with this problem versus that problem. And it gave me a sense that being part of the community is very important. It's not what I wanted, it's what these people wanted over there that made us feel grateful to be able to serve them. A large portion of that community was Native Indian. And it was surprising to me that back in the late 90s to find still American Indians that might be walking in my office in need of shoes and clothing. So really that was something that I never thought of would be in the United States, and we need to be aware that such a population needs some side of help. And by help, I really mean not just financial, They don't have a social structure. They don't have a social web to associate themselves with, and they live in a remote area. So that's what drove us there.
And they were grateful, I'm sure. You made a great quote. Aging isn't a disease. It can be stemmed / even reversed if we look at healthcare in a holistic way. What do you mean by that? Looking at, because that term is often thrown around. What do you mean by looking at healthcare in a holistic way?
So to look at a human being, we have to understand how we function. We have our genome, which is like the hardwire. This is the hardware, if you want, of a computer. Then we have the epigenome, which is what dictates is going to happen with this genome. We thought initially, a few decades ago, when the human genome was unraveled, that we're going to be able to treat all diseases. What we found is that for every part of the genome, for every part of a chromosome, a gene, there is a factor. There are things that might make that gene express itself, and there are things that might make that genes inhibit its expression. So we went sort of from the sea of the unknown to the ocean of the unknown. We know now that the epigenome is what we eat, what we breathe, how we interact socially. That meditation session that we had today is part of an epigenome that will allow us to improve our lifespan, and so on and so forth. Being part of a community is important to improve our lifespan. So I believe that medicine is on the cusp of a major change, and I believe that in the near future, you're going to be able to live to be 120, maybe 140. I don't think aging is a disease. I don't think aging is what it used to be, like it's the normal part of growing. Aging is a disease, as defined by the World Health Organization. And that's where we should be focusing on from the medical community. It is a comprehensive approach. It's not just your physical well-being, it's your social well-being, it's your financial well-being, it's your psychological well-being that matters. And this is what I meant by that.
Last question for you. You've spent 20 years of your life experience in the administration of hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I'm sure that people have heard of this. I'm not sure that people understand it. I don't completely understand it either, but maybe you can talk a little bit about it, what studies have been done, the benefits, et cetera, et cetera.
So hyperbaric oxygen therapy is a method by which we put the whole body under oxygen in a compartment that's full with oxygen under pressure. Typical pressures are 2 to 3 atmospheric pressures, which is the equivalent of diving to from 33 to 36 to 66 feet of seawater. But instead of breathing air, we're breathing oxygen in our tanks. What that does, it's an insult to the body, actually. It generates oxygen-free radicals and nitrogen-free radicals that are toxins. But meter those toxins. It's like a slap on the face to wake up. It has been shown in multiple studies that it improves the response of the immune system. It improves the generation of growth factors. It improves the generation of small vascular endothelial growth factors. And most important, it mobilizes stem cells. Stem cells are the basics for any organ to form, and it can regenerate some organs or some wounds based on that methodology. The most recent studies that are coming out of Israel showing that hyperbaric can reverse aging by extending the centromere, the telomere. The telomere is an end cap of the chromosome. As we age and as our DNA is going through the process of mitosis, which is division, the end cap gets smaller and smaller. And we can tell our aging by measuring our telomere length. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy has been shown to increase the telomere, therefore, theoretically speaking, used as an adjunct to improve our lifespan in general. Now, having said that, I need to let you know that it's not FDA approved. So this is still being researched. There are centers doing it with the notion that you have a full disclosure that this is not fully FDA approved yet. But the mere fact that the WHO listed aging as a disease, it opened the door now for addressing the disease, which is our lifespan. And this is what I believe we're on the cusp of a major change in healthcare delivery, where we should be aging to be 120, 140 years of age, at least.
That's fascinating. Thank you so much. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate that. Dr. Ziad Mirza. Thank you. Well, how about a big thank you for our entire list of speakers here tonight. Just a couple of parting thoughts. Things to continue to do to age successfully: maintain high cognitive and physical abilities, interact with others in meaningful ways, and, pardon me, 5 ways to find contentment as we age: find simplicity, streamline possessions, search for wisdom on how to deal with grief, recognize and enjoy one's uniqueness, and free yourself from outdated ideas about your own potential. In other words, you can grow, and someone said it here before, maybe we repeated it a few times. You grow as you age as you grow. And maybe the real key to aging gratefully is not actually waiting to be grateful until you age. How about let's just do it from day one and try to figure that out. I'd like to end our event tonight with gratitude to our sponsors who made this possible: Aventura at the Heights, Gilchrist, Johns Hopkins Home Care Group, Lifespan Network, MVS Woundcare and Hyperbarics, and Positive Aging Community. And with gratitude, I say good night. What are there? Oh, remind people for the raffle. Okay, yes, the raffle. So I'm hoping, I forgot my number, but I'm hoping they pick that number. But don't forget, 7 o'clock tonight, or what is it, 7 or 7:15? About 7 o'clock. And all of the exhibitors that you passed on the way into the Gordon will be available until about that time. So thank you, everyone, for coming.